everybody. Today I'm going to give a what if video shot. Wings of Fire edition. This is what if Kestrel survived the attack and encounter with Morosier and Blister. It was quite a surprise when Kestrel was stabbed by Blister. She had a million questions rushing through her head. What was Morosier doing with her? Why was she trying to kill her? What were they wondering about the dragonets? What were they going to try and do? This all rushed through her head very quickly before she blacked out, hitting the ocean. A few days later, she woke up on a rocky bank of an island. She didn't really have quite the idea of where she was, or full memory of what happened. She just knew that she had a disgusting infected cut along her neck. She suspected it was a sandwing, but there was no residue of the venom because it struck too fast and none of the venom could get in. She didn't quite know what to do, but then she soon figured out she was in Sea Wing territory when a patrol came and found her. She tried her best to remember what she was doing, where she was, and how this had happened to her while the flight was on her way to the Summer Palace. She hated swimming, so that's when it got difficult to actually get her in to the Summer Palace. Although her expression was gruff and tired, she was quite amazed with how the Summer Palace was so well concealed. Soon after, she found the Dragonets of Destiny had found their way there, most likely looking for Tsunami's family. If that was the case, she thought, then she'd be in for a wonderful treat if Tsunami was still mad at her for how they were treated, which she obviously would be due to Tsunami's overdramatics. At least that's how she thought of it. She wasn't too delighted to see all the dragonets around her when a couple minutes after. She finally met Queen Coral, which she found was, well, to put it nicely, she thought Queen Coral was rather eccentric. She wasn't exactly a fan of the Queen's fantasy stuff. To be fair, Kestrel was never really a fan of stories or fairy tales. And as expected, when she went into the cave with the guards, all the dragonets started swarming her with questions and confusion. And then Sunny finally realized the gash along her neck and started freaking out, which was expected. After that, there was a hurricane of questions flooding towards her of how it happened. She didn't want to admit that she couldn't remember, so she just stayed silent and after a while just said to let it be and that it was her business, not theirs. As much as she wasn't a fan of the Dragonets, she was kind of happy to see that they didn't get themselves killed. Yet, at least. There's no doubt they will. At least that's what Kestrel thought. She didn't really want to say, but she was worried about the Dragonet's well-being. And if she had to guess, Blister would be there soon. But that's when all of a sudden a flashback went into her mind. Morosier, Blister, and her on a mountain area. She thought for a moment, and then came to a quick realization of something. At least a possible realization. Did they? No. They surely couldn't have. We'll just have to see. Maybe she'll remember more if she sees them. Considering the thought of the name managed to bring back a flashback. She was rather aggravated she didn't know what happened to her still. But that all ended until when Blister came. As soon as Kestrel saw her, all the memories started to come flooding back. How Blister had cold-heartedly stabbed her and Morrisier let her. In fact, Morrisier was the one to kick her off of the cliff. She was rather outraged, but didn't say a thing, although the dragonets, mainly Starflight, looked at her oddly when she scowled and glared at Blister. He most likely already figured it out a couple seconds later on the fact that he had made a horribly surprised face when he looked back at Blister than to Kestrel. He looked almost frightened a little bit by her now that the circumstances have changed. Although Kestrel, knowing she would be outnumbered in the argument, she still didn't say anything about Blister. She sat rather aggravated for a while in the cave she was in, until she was finally invited to a breakfast? What kind of queen lets their hostages have breakfast with them? To be fair, the dragonets of Destiny were with them, and by Sunny's pleas, most likely got her in. She was still chained up, though, which didn't really surprise her. But she was getting kind of tired of it. The breakfast went interestingly after the shenanigans that Tsunami pulled, which was interesting to say the least. Again. But to be fair, she wasn't surprised with how dramatic the Queen and Tsunami both were. She looked over when Blister complimented Glory out of nowhere, which Kestrel thought was ridiculous. Glory was just a rainwing. There was nothing she could do. But then there was something said about Scarlet. Something that Glory flinched almost at. Kestrel looked over at her confuzzled. No. Glory couldn't have done anything. She couldn't have had anything to do with it. It most likely had something to do with peril for Scarlet's disappearance. Right? She shook herself, trying to forget the thought, and went back to breakfast. Alright, that's pretty much all I have time for today, but I hope you like it. Let's see if this video gets enough likes. Maybe we can do a part 2 on this. But yeah, I actually had a lot of fun coming up, and I have a lot of ideas for a next part if we ever do a next part, which I'll be very happy to do. But that's if this gets enough attention, maybe? Hopefully. I thought this would be a fun idea, considering this is probably one of the ones that isn't done very often. But yeah, here's the final piece. Subscribe and leave a like. Bye.